And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Okay, moving into satellite imagery, we've got this front here coming onto the coast, bringing the gale force winds, spraying some rain right up to about the coastline, mostly Nunivak Island on down to the Alaska Peninsula areas there, the main low center. Back there over the northwest Bering Sea, right in this area there, spinning. Not much going on. Looks like some buildups here just south and southwest of Fairbanks. And pretty good conditions over all of interior Alaska, down to Kodiak Island, a lot of clear skies, sunshine. And then system down here spreading some clouds up into the southeast coast. For tomorrow morning, flying weather, that system I just spoke of, creating a lot of IFR into the Gulf of Alaska, starting to push up into southern Prince William Sound and staying VFR for the inside waters of the southeast coast. Interior Alaska VFR, but increasing marginal VFR and becoming cloudy across southern Alaska here, and marginal VFR eastern slopes of the western Alaska range, mostly affecting Lake Clark Merrill Pass there on the eastern approaches, as we'll see in a little bit. And let's see some IFR there, southern Kodiak Island up to the Aleutian Range. Lots of IFR out over the Bering Sea and from about Nikolsky westward to Shimianatu. For the afternoon Sunday, maybe a little bit of marginal VFR trying to work its way onto the central Arctic coast there around Point Barrow. Otherwise, staying VFR for the remainder of the Arctic coast, North Slope, Brooks Range, right on down into the interior, Copper River Basin. Still cloudy skies, increasing moisture here, south central Alaska, the North Gulf Coast with IFR right up along the coastline. And IFR in the increase there, coming up the east side of Kodiak Island, southern Shelikof Strait. Marginal VFR coming inland a ways up to at least the Kuskokwim Mountains, back across the Seward Peninsula. And IFR, no change out over the Bering Sea and for the southeast coast. Marginal VFR is trying to work into the central inside waters. And then by Monday morning, marginal VFR covering all of the southeast coast. That's in the forecast anyway, and IFR right up along the North Gulf Coast to the coastal areas of the Kenai Peninsula. Maybe trying to get into Resurrection Bay, but marginal VFR here for the western Alaska range. And IFR now coming inland here out to the west there, across the Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta areas. Marginal VFR cutting off right along the Kuskokwim Mountains. So the valley, Kuskokwim Valley looking pretty good, at least starting the day Monday. No change over the interior, a little bit more IFR possible there, central Arctic coast. No change out over the Bering Sea or the Aleutians. And that holds through Monday afternoon. No change out here to the west. Marginal VFR, southwest interior, up into the western Alaska range, a little farther north there, maybe getting in toward Denali in the afternoon. And western interior, starting to see some marginal VFR, but not too far to the east. IFR, southern Seward Peninsula, and a little bit of IFR possible on the central Arctic coast. Stays VFR over interior Alaska down through the Copper River Basin. And the southeast coast, marginal VFR to the south, improving from the morning hours here over the northern panhandle to about Yakutat. Passes Anatuvik, looking good again tomorrow. VFR for both Anatuvik and Atigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, lowest conditions eastern entrances on both passes. And rainy, starting out VFR, becoming marginal VFR here, especially on the east side. Rainy, another VFR day, windy, another VFR day. Isabel, looking good, VFR there as well. And Mentesta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage, marginal VFR. And lowest conditions, eastern entrance. It doesn't look like it'll be IFR at this point in time. And for Chilkoot and White, VFR, freezing levels, 10 to 12,000 feet here across the southeast coast, and about 8 to 10,000 feet here. A little bit cooler air trying to come in, but not too much over the western interior areas there as upper level high pressure moves off into the Northwest Territories. 10 to 12,000 feet over the southern Bering Sea. 6,000 feet here coming into the northern Bering Sea with that upper level low. And for icing, an area with that elongating front that's kind of pushing eastward here, spreading some icing threats into Kodiak Island. Isolated moderate possible there, the Alaska Peninsula. Southwest interior, possible isolated moderate rime icing. as well as the North Gulf Coast down across the Panhandle areas. And for the jet stream, we've got, the strongest jet here along and just south of the Aleutians there at about 100 to 105 knots. Southwest, pretty light in the interior here. And at 9,000 feet, we've got southerly winds, 50 knots over the western interior here, and then westerlies on the south side of this low, 45 to 50 knots. Southeast at 45 knots into the North Gulf Coast, and 35 knot southeast winds here, eastern North Gulf coastal areas, light over the interior and the Panhandle, and 35 to 40 knot west-northwesterlies here coming across the Bering Sea, turning north, or turning from this, becoming southerly at 45 knots there over the northern Bering Sea into the Seward Peninsula area. Turbulence, considerable moderate turbulence here, Bering Strait down to the Yukon Delta, St. Matthew Island, and some light to Haisley moderate turbulence possible for the North Gulf Coast, as well as Kodiak Island.